Being Still, Meditation That Makes Sense, the audiobook, is written by Hart-Wells. The exercises for this book are included, as are PDF and EPUB copies of the book. Any questions should be emailed to Roger at chaosinaction, that is, chaosinaction @gmail.com. This book is dedicated to my father, Gordon Wells, my first teacher. Being Still, Meditation That Makes Sense, by Hart-Wells. Introduction. No one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. The Buddha. When meditation is stripped to its core, it's actually quite simple. Just stop. Be still. Be still in your body and in your mind. Be wakefully still without needing distraction or entertainment. And most important, be content to be wakefully, peacefully still. That's what meditation trains us to be able to do. And it's what this book is about. And it's what every creature on the planet is doing for parts of each and every one of their days. Every so often they stop and they do absolutely nothing. Animals, birds, insects, reptiles, fish, they all do it. They sit or they lie down and they go still. And in that stillness they're immediately at ease. They might even close their eyes for a while, but they aren't asleep. They're alert, passively aware, and utterly calm, peacefully waiting for something to happen, when they will come out of stillness and be ready for action. And during all these spaces dotted throughout their day, they're not worrying or fretting or planning or thinking about anything like we do, nor are they anxious or tense or bored. They've simply disengaged their attention from the business of life for a while, to let their mind and body refresh themselves. If you've got a pet cat or a dog, maybe take some time out and watch them. You'll see that when there's nothing to do, they do nothing, and they do it with great pleasure. In effect, they're meditating. They're not trying to meditate, it's simply something they do. A natural part of their lives, like eating, drinking, and keeping clean. But as much as they find stillness pleasurable to do, that's not its only purpose. These periods of disengagement also have very practical function in their lives. With their mind still and passively aware and their body restfully inert, their entire organism instinctively goes about renewing itself. Muscles relax, breathing lengthens, tensions unwind, organs get a chance to rejuvenate. The blood is cleaned, excess hormones are metabolized, waste is processed. And at the same time as this is happening, a similar kind of maintenance is taking place in their brain. Recent thoughts and memories are sorted through and reorganized into more coherent patterns. What's been learnt is clarified and prioritized and archived into the unconscious. So you see, in all those spaces where your pet cat or dog seems to be doing nothing, there's a whole process of maintenance and rejuvenation taking place as their mind and body renew and rebalance themselves to be ready for whatever will come next. And it all happens naturally when they're still, because that's the way of nature. When things are left alone for a while, they readjust themselves, they heal, forests recover, fallow fields self-fertilize, overfished oceans come back to life. Similarly, the mind and body as parts of nature also rebalance themselves. There's no need for positive thinking or white light or visualizations. It all happens naturally, if there's stillness. Now, as I said before, this innate capacity to go still is something every creature on the planet can do. Every creature, that is, except us. We, unfortunately, have great difficulty with stillness. It might have been different a few thousand years ago when life was less complicated, Perhaps then stillness was an integral part of our lives as well, but no longer. In the complex world we humans have built for ourselves, our lives have become far too complicated and hard-driven by the vast machine of our civilization. We're too disturbed by our restless minds, analysing, worrying, daydreaming, remembering, anticipating. We exist in a constant state of agitation, which, because we've lived with it all our lives, we don't notice it. This loss of our ability to be still, which every other creature on the planet takes for granted, is a primary cause of most of our mental and physical suffering. Trouble is, when we look around, everyone else is just like us. So our anxious and agitated state seems entirely normal to us. But in nature, it's not normal to suffer the way we do. Look around at the birds, insects, and animals. As we humans get sick, go crazy, get lonely and depressed and mess things up, every other creature on the planet is living quiet, peaceful, efficient lives. And we could too, if we could only learn to stop. If we could be still for just a little each day. And that's why we have meditation, which, when we strip it back to essentials, is simply a set of tools to help us learn this skill, the skill of being still, which we lost a long time ago. One last word before we get into it. I had a friend once who had a library full of every kind of book about meditation and Buddhism you could imagine, and he'd read them all. He knew everything, all the doctrine and philosophy, and he loved to argue and discuss theory with other Buddhist devotees in chat rooms and on Facebook pages. And he constantly speculated about enlightenment and what it was, and he could quote Zen koans and muse over the sayings of the Buddha for hours. But even though meditation is central to everything he was so fascinated by, except for a few frustrated attempts, he never got around to practicing it. He kept saying one day he would, but over the years I knew him, he kept putting that day off. And because he didn't practice, he always had difficulty with meditation each time he tried it. And each time I came home from another meditation retreat with one or other of the teachers I worked with, we would meet up, and he would ask me about what had happened, and he'd drink in the details and listen to my stories. And then he'd sigh and say, "I must do it. I'll come with you next year." But then next year would arrive, and he always had another excuse not to come. After years of this procrastination, I realized what his problem was. He had read and talked so much about meditation it had become a kind of virtual reality in his head, which direct experience could never match up to. As a result, each time he meditated, he'd be so preoccupied with looking for the experiences he'd read about that he'd end up chasing his mind in circles, trying to recreate what he imagined meditation should be, instead of just being with the reality of what it actually was in each moment, as he should have been doing. Predictably, his frustration would build and he'd give up. Though his enthusiasm for the idea of meditation remained undiminished throughout all the years I knew him, nevertheless he remained forlorn and shut out from what he most desired. So what's my point in relating this to you? Well, it's simple. If you want to know how to climb a mountain, you have to put down the book, get out of the armchair and climb mountains. And it's the same with meditation. It won't happen from thinking about it, or talking about it, or imagining what it might be like, or reading about it. Meditation is a skill, just like any other skill. It's something you have to do. So if you truly want to understand meditation, you've got to practice. Direct experience is everything. With that in mind, I've designed this book to inspire you to practice. My purpose when I wrote it was to write what I wished I'd had in the early days when I first began. A book that would explain the meditation process as clearly as possible. A book that would help me through any of the obstacles I might meet. That's what I've tried to write here. So please, Read my book in any way that works for you, from beginning to end, or browse and skim at random. And if there's something I've written that you don't understand or you don't agree with, then let it go and move on. And if I repeat certain points, well, it's simply because I feel they need reinforcing. So don't get stuck on anything. Take what you need from what I've written and keep going. After all, it's not this book that's important here. It's what you do. Meditation will take you through a landscape as infinite as it is fascinating, and like any new adventure, there's going to be difficulties. But I encourage you to persevere, struggle wholeheartedly, and keep practicing as best you can. Experiment with the methods, have fun with them, combine them, mess them up. Be fascinated with the process that happens when you meditate. If you can do this, meditation itself will teach you. All you have to do is keep going.